If you're ready for freedom from the grind, then passive income from real estate investing is the best way to get you there. If you don't know where to start or what to do next, then the Rent Roll Radio Show is the best place to get you there. Join us while we discuss the best practices, strategies, and mindset you'll need and give you actionable content to get you from where you are to where you want to be. Rent Roll Radio listeners, welcome back to the show. As always, I'm your host, Sterling Chapman. Today, we're joined by a special guest and a good friend of mine, David Abarca. David, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
David, do you want to tell your story for our listeners that don't know you, what you were doing before real estate, how you got into real estate, and what you're doing today?
Sure. I got into real estate in 2003 when I got to my first ship, my first command when I was in the Navy. I was walking around with a friend of mine complaining about having to sleep on a ship and live on a ship. And he mentioned to me, he goes, man, you should just buy a house and rent out the rooms to the other guys on the ship. And I was like, man, that's a good idea. You know, my dad's always telling me to do something like that, to buy some real estate or some kind of investments, you know, and because he had a couple of properties himself. And so I gave him a call right there and then, and I told him, you know, what the plan was. And he said, of course, he would support me and help me out in any way. I set out, found the cheapest house in the best neighborhood I could find that I could afford at that time. I didn't know what a VA loan was, but apparently I qualified for one because I was in the military. And
Nice.
I didn't know what house hacking was, but apparently that's what I was going to start doing. I didn't know anything about flipping, but I was going to fix this crappy house up and sell it for more than I bought it for. And I didn't know anything about BRRRR, but come to find out I could refinance the house, and I was in the middle of doing all this stuff, you know, and that's what I did. You know, I fixed up the house, and my dad ended up flying up to just kind of help out for a little bit, and we ended up building 2 more rooms and adding 2 more rooms to the house. I remember talking to some bank who called me and said something about, you know, refining the house, and that's what started, man. Once I sold that house, I came back home, bought a couple more properties, little mobile home lots, and put some mobile homes on them, fixed those up a little bit, ended up lease optioning those, bought a few more. Ended up, my dad wanted to sell his restaurant and his building that it was in that had 4 apartments in it. And, you know, funny thing is, I didn't even want the apartments at the time. I really am so glad now that I did take the apartments. And that's kind of how I've gone. You know, now I'm partnering up with some people and buying more and more properties and fixing them up and renting them.
Awesome. So you're still primarily BRRRRing properties. You're not flipping them. That's your main kind of go-to strategy is working with
Yes,
kind
I
of
am
private money
BRRRRing
lenders.
properties.
BRRRR.
And the reason being, it has been the one property we just tried to flip it fell out of contract twice. The buyer just spooked by the inspection, you know, the electrical this or the plumbing that. Nothing major, but it just scares some people. And we ended up lease optioning that house. We're actually gonna be, you know, wrapping that up here really soon. And we have been buying some properties in some lower income neighborhoods to fix up and rent.
Nice, nice. And are you what lower income neighborhoods are you in?
North Baton Rouge, in that
Okay,
area.
cool. Cool.
Yep.
Yeah, we know the area well.
That's right.
You should see our guys stomping around Brookstown, rolling 4 deep in camo Crestworth hats.
I'll be looking out for them.
Well, cool, man. So I'm with you with the flips. I've got a few that, you know, I'm considering converting to BRRRRs just until the market changes. Cause, you know, like you'd mentioned, you know, we've had some deals fall out of contract a few times, and those same deals would not have fallen out of contract in 2022. Like they just wouldn't have. Like people would have been like, yeah, that's cool. And they're like, you know, because of the supply and the interest rates. Whereas today, buyers are just being more and more picky. And the BRRRR allows you to kind of kick the can down the road to maybe sell when it's a better market. So that's a great strategy. The beef I've had with it lately is, and I say the beef with the BRRRR strategy. I mean, I built my whole portfolio that way, so I love it. But with interest rates today, it's difficult, you know, to get them to cash flow like they were before. So most of the houses in my rental portfolio are you know, somewhere between a 3.75 and a 5.25. Whereas I can't on a 30-year, right? And
Right.
today I can't find anything under a 7% interest rate on a 20-year AM with a with a small local bank. So and at that at, at those numbers, it's just hard to cash flow
Right. We've been
unless you're in North Baton Rouge where
right.
everything
We've been
cash
around
flows.
7.5 to 8% on most of our cash out refis. And luckily, man, I partnered up with my contractor, who's able to keep my construction costs very, very low. And he's able to do it at the lowest price possible for us. We're partnered together. I fund it, he fixes it, and then
It's
we
awesome.
we split everything 50-50.
Oh, cool. And how long has that relationship been going on?
That started at the beginning of this year. I met him
Oh,
last
cool.
year when we did slap a roof on a property in New Orleans, and then my contractor his business fell apart, the one I had in New Orleans. So I called this guy and my partner Jonathan now, and Jonathan Gordillo with Wildbuck Construction,
Yeah,
and we just kind of got to talking, kind of became more and more friendly. I passed him a couple of jobs, and then he found a few deals, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to partner up on this?" And I was like, "Yeah, because I suck at the rehab part, so
nice,
why don't you help me out, and I'll help you out with the money." And
nice,
that's how it's
nice.
been going. You know.
Awesome. So
Plus, I was able to go
how many
ahead.
deals have y'all locked up this year?
5 deals, 6 with
Wow.
another partner also.
Awesome. And
Yeah.
how are they cash flowing? Like what is the kind of the play here? Is it like one of those, hey, I just want to own real estate so it'll pay it down long term type of thing? Or are you getting real like meaningful cash flow out of it?
We're getting about 200 to 300 because we're also going to manage our properties ourselves. He manages his own properties, so we're able to
Cool.
kind of get a little bit extra out of each one. Keeping the rehab costs low. Him managing the property also. The Section 8 rentals, stuff like that, have been able to give us somewhere between 200 and 300 a piece on each
Nice.
property that we bought.
So my question to you, I heard this on a Bigger Pockets podcast a long time ago, or maybe it was like one of Brandon Turner's books. But they were like, you should always underwrite management in, even if you're going to self manage, because at some point you're not going to want to self manage,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Um, and I promise you that day will come
Yeah.
that you don't want to self manage. So what is your plan there for, that eats into cash flow and then you've kind of got to, then you got to reposition yourself. So at what point do you plan on turning over to management or do you never plan on turning over to management or
We
what's your,
don't. We have been talking about starting a property management company because we are getting up there in property. Like between his properties he owned before and properties that I owned before, we're starting to get up there in units. And we have been talking about starting a property management company to run our stuff. He is a licensed agent. He's just a few months away from getting his broker's license. And that's kind of where we're at. That's kind of the long-term plan there to just push it all into this new company that we're going to start.
awesome. So like it's a vertically integrated real estate investment firm
Exactly. Like
where
like
you
my friend
do,
Sterling does.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's not a bad idea. Uh, Great minds. Yeah, no, for sure. Well, hey man, whenever y'all are ready, we could certainly help y'all on the property management side, and we'd love for some help on the construction side. So let's get together on
Let's
that
definitely do that.
offline and compare notes because we when we built our property management company, we spent tens of thousands of dollars on a consultant to come in and build it out properly. And I don't necessarily want to do that again this week with a construction company, just from a cash
Mhm.
outlay perspective. But I feel like if I knew somebody else who was running a construction company, I could probably get that information in
There
about
you
an
go.
hour.
Definitely trade
Yeah,
notes on.
yeah. What's next from there? Like what's your kind of 3 year plan there?
Man, that's a good question. Like I keep trying to go into multifamily and try to push myself in that direction. But I keep kind of coming back to these single family deals that keep coming across my plate, and the local deals and stuff like that. I do want to start buying some smaller multifamily, and by smaller I mean like 10 units, 20
Mm,
units in places like Atlanta, the Dallases, Houston. I mostly picked Atlanta because I can get there pretty quickly.
Right.
Um, and that's kind of the long-term plan, just trying to push myself in that direction to continue doing that, to grow, to push myself.
So let me ask you this. Why, you said small multifamily units and you said 10 to 20 units. Why did you pick 10 to 20 unit apartment complexes?
It's because it's what I can afford myself right now. And I do want
Hmm.
to buy something a little bit bigger, either with myself or my immediate partners, before I start go asking people for money and make sure that I
Sure.
can do it myself. And once that happens, once I'm kind of clear and I can, all right, I know I can do this, man, then I'll start asking around for other people's money, and I don't want to do that
Sure.
until I'm absolutely positive I can do it
Yeah,
with my
no,
own.
for sure. For sure. I've never lost anybody else's money, but I've lost a good bit of my own
Yeah.
um, in the last year. No, I mean, that's, that's a very, kind of noble approach to the subject matter. Couple of pushback items I would have for you, just from my experience in the apartment complex, buying community, which you're very well versed. You're an investor of mine in one of my communities.
Hmm.
Is one thing is, smaller properties have management constraints because they can't support full-time staff, right? So if you
Right.
get a 100 plus unit, like the financials of that at a decent cap rate, the financials of that 100 plus unit apartment complex are going to support an on-site, leasing agent, an on-site maintenance person. Like it's gonna pay its own bills. It's gonna support it. When you get into a 20, 30 unit, you're not, you can't have one site. So you've got this like fractional, you get this fractional model of like people that really don't, like, it's not quite single family, but it's not quite multifamily. Like,
Right.
if you call a multifamily, like if you call 99 like multifamily apartment complex manager, like property managers, 99 of them are going to tell you like, I'm not interested in managing your 20 unit unless it's 3 blocks away from my other, several apartment complexes. So when you get into fractional management in other markets, it becomes complicated. Like we ran into that issue in Rock Hill. We ran into the issue in Noonan where it was like our property manager was fine when they had other assets in the area, but it doesn't
Hmm.
make sense for them to be in the area with a smaller asset. You can buy a 100 plus unit apartment complex across the country and just hire the staff and place them on site and do the rest of it, electronically from here. But when you run into complications with the smaller units. So that's my first comment on that idea, because I hear it a lot, because it's just a natural progression in people's heads, right? Like, I'll buy some single family houses. The people that want to start, I'm going to wholesale, and then I'm going to flip, and then I'm going to buy rentals, and then I'm going to buy apartments, or, and I'm going to start with a fourplex, and then I'm going to go to a 10plex, and then I'm going to do 100, but it, it's just, it doesn't, in my opinion, and in the opinion of a lot of other, successful investors I've spoken to, it's not quite that linear,
Right.
because of the complications. And you said, I don't want to raise money until I've proven that I can proof of concept done it with my own money. Well, I mean, why don't you just partner with somebody who's done it a bunch of times, right?
Hmm.
Like, that's one way that you can make sure that your investors' money is safe, you know, without you
Right.
actually having to do it. You know what I mean? Like, dude,
And that
my
has been
partners
the
are
other
way
option.
smarter than me.
Yeah.
Like like my partners in Virginia, like Chris Collins, Parkinson, they are way smarter than me.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? They do a lot of the heavy lifting. And I mean, I am so confident when I ask for capital, because I know that they're thinking of things that I'm not even thinking of.
Right.
So I mean, that would be one way to kind of skip because what you're going to end up with a 20 unit. Another thing is, I don't know about other areas of the country, but if you've noticed in like Louisiana, like how the zoning is, like they don't have like decent 20 unit complexes like next to Bocage, right? Like
Right.
10 unit apartment complex is probably going to be in a pretty rough area,
Yeah.
So you've got all of those complications. So I mean, I always say, like, don't limit yourself. Like, you could like, I don't recommend it. There is plenty of people out there, especially in the last 3 years, who've never bought a single family house, but gone and bought a 100+ unit apartment complex. I mean,
Okay.
again, I don't recommend it. Like, I'm not Michael Blanc. I'm not a guru. I'm not sitting here saying skip the flip, just go buy a 100-unit apartment complex tomorrow, because I mean, I don't think that's necessarily maybe the most responsible approach either. But I do think that you could. I, I do think you could build credibility in the single family space, and then partner with someone who has credibility in the multifamily space, and just kind of skip that 10 to 30 awkward stage, right? And just go straight into like one of the larger, uh, that has more economies of scale that you could take advantage of more. So
Right. I had a conversation with Matt Fairclough, and he told me something very similar. And
yeah,
I'm thinking of like Brandon Turner's always talking about the stack, like buy a two, then four next year, then
right.
eight, then 16, and kind of go like that, and then, I actually did have a conversation with Matt Fairclough, like I said, and he was saying something similar. He's like, man, trying to manage 20 units it's tough, and I recommend not doing it. He said, that's what he was honest, he's pretty much exactly what you said. And I have thought a lot about the partnership, going to these conferences that I've run into a few times at, is partner shopping, and
Yeah.
eventually, you know, trying to see what we can do.
Yep. No, I mean, I always say with the partner shop and, like, shop, I lucked out with my partners. I mean, like I said, all three of them are smarter than I am. Like, all three of them are harder working than I am. I always feel like, I always joke like it, I'm the kid in the group that they got the same grade as everybody else, but didn't do as much of the work.
Cheated
Um,
off
and,
everyone.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and I joke like that, but I mean, I'm certain that behind my back they would tell you things, where places where I add value as well. But partner shopping is something that you need to be very intentional about. But a lot of people have a tendency to just want to partner up with their friends, and that's just not a good approach. What
Right.
you need to do is find somebody who has value and can bring value. So the way that, like, my partnerships worked with my partners is like I was already raising capital. Like, people were already giving me money. I just didn't have the bandwidth or attention span or whatever to sit there and underwrite, apartment complexes all day. It's just like a very, very, like, labor intensive, like, just technical work that I'm just, that's just not my personality profile, right? Like, I run around and talk to people. I don't sit in front of Excel documents for 8 hours a day. Like, it's just not how I was built. Well, that's how my partner was built. And he loves doing that. But you get him in front of a camera or in front of a stranger, and he's like, you know what I mean? Like, he just, but he spent 7 years working for, like, one of the top private equity firms in the country. And then he spent another several years at a boutique private equity firm that does managing billions of dollars in real estate. So, like, he knows the numbers like the back of his hand. He can build, I always say, he can build spreadsheets like Elsa builds snowmen. Like, just there you go. It's a financial model. You know what I mean? But, you know, so we complement each other very well, and that's what you need to
Right.
look for in a partner. Like, I knew it's not like, hey, we're friends. I think you're cool. You think I'm cool. I'll go learn how to raise capital, and you go learn how to underwrite, and we can be partners. Like, I don't think that's a great approach. I think a better approach would be, hey, you're really great at underwriting and I'm really great at raising capital. Like, if we put these things together, we could, go buy some deals
Right.
together.
Or hey, you're really good at the rehab, and I'm pretty good at
Right.
raising capital.
Right. Exactly. Um, so, so what is the, I guess the first question is, what's next for you? And you say, well, I don't really know. So what's the first next step to figure out what's next for you?
The first next step is kind of clean up what I'm doing right now. I do have two awful flips in New Orleans that I need to get wrapped up. The very first property I bought in May of last year, the first property I bought last year in May is still going. And the second property I bought in July is also still going.
Yeah.
Every other property I bought since then is either done or almost done. And
I
these
was
two
look
properties.
I was looking at my board the other day. I was like, Jonathan, how did we buy Wakefield on September 14th? Like it's not even September yet. He goes, yeah, that was of 2022. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh shit, we shouldn't have that anymore.
Right. And it's been permit issues. I mean, these are two full gut rehabs. This is what I decided to
Yeah.
start with last year. And
Oh, geez.
I mean, tunneling under the slab, everything,
Oh
and
yeah. New Orleans is
we,
funky. I don't even go into New Orleans. I have enough of a headache in Metairie in Jefferson Parish with all the bedrock, all the sand that washes out from the
right.
slabs. I mean, that we
Oh
don't have
yeah,
that.
no, those are terrible. I walked one and I ended up getting seasick in the house, man. The foundation was so messed up. Um, no, yeah, last year, wrapping those up and taking care of them and getting them out of my life, some one way or another, is the that next step to get that capital back and be able to figure out, okay, now I can bring all this capital to someone, talk to them, partner up, and let's try to make something happen in bigger space, rather than these one at a time little houses.
Sure. So you're thinking just abandon single family altogether and go dive headfirst straight into multifamily.
Right. And not altogether. I'd probably keep a few, buy a house here and there and here in Baton Rouge,
Right.
staying local, kind of like my friend Sterling here.
I've had, and I asked Matt, it's so funny you brought up Matt Faircloth because the last time I saw, I think there's maybe second last time I saw Matt, I asked him about that because like I always feel like I have an ongoing identity crisis because every other real estate guy out there, they're either the apartment guy or they're the single family guy, right? Like some variation of that, right? And I've just always done both. And I don't know what to tell you. I just do both. Like, sometimes it takes a year to find a good apartment deal, and I flip 20 houses in that time. You know what I mean? Like I just do both. So it's just kind of ongoing identity crisis of, and I don't like that you feel like you have to quit one to do the other. But I asked Matt that because I thought Matt still did both. And I was like, well, how do you handle your branding around that? And he goes, I don't. And he goes, I actually just quit doing single families altogether. So,
Yeah.
I mean, Matt's got a bigger following than I do, right?
Mhm.
With his books and his bigger pockets relationships and all that kind of stuff. So like I'd imagine that like he can do that, right? Because all he does is just get on talk shows all day long and his machine raises capital and he puts it into deals with great operators, right? Like so
Right.
like that machine works more flawlessly for him than it does for me because you know, I got 200 followers on YouTube and he's got 20,000, right? It makes a difference.
Right.
So,
I like this stuff too, man. Like I would get bored if I was just sitting around waiting for the next deal. I don't mean sitting around, but
right.
I would be bored. I like doing this. I like getting out there and messing around with these houses and fixing them up and talking to my wife and be like, "What do you think of this color?" And that, and she's
Right.
good at that stuff. I
Oh,
don't.
dude, I'm
I
terrible.
can't pick out anything.
I picked out colors one time. It was terrible. That I don't, my contractor lives in the house now. I wish he would go ahead and paint it because I'm so embarrassed at how bad it looks. But I picked it out and it's like bird shit yellow. Like I was going for like tan. I don't even know what happened,
Right.
but it's like it's a beautiful house except for it's like yellow. Like the exterior paint is yellow. And I was like,
Yeah.
no, nobody ever let me pick the colors again. And
No.
now we pretty much just paint everything the same color.
Yeah, yeah, that's something I picked up from some of the other flippers that have either written books or podcasts. Just man, just make a spreadsheet with all the materials you want in there, and don't ever worry about it again. Just change it one thing here and there every once in a while.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, we do that with our flip. So our realtor's wife is does
Mhm.
a lot of interior design. So she'll come in every few months and she'll be like, hey, agreeable gray's out. We're using this cream now. Or oh hey, that light gray tile, that was 2022. The new trend is this dark, tile. But
Right.
whatever she says, we just do it because
That's what I
Lord
use my
knows
wife
I
for.
can't. Awesome. Awesome. So real quick, I want to hop into our radio round. Just quick, three quick questions to help our listeners get to know you a little bit better. The first one is, what is your favorite book?
I don't have just one favorite book.
You can
I
say
gotta say at
multiple
least
ones.
Yeah, I gotta say at least three or four. I got them written down right here. The first one is the book on rental property investing by Brandon Turner.
Yeah,
That's the one that really got me going. That's the one that when
same.
everybody talks about Rich Dad Poor Dad, that's
Yep.
what did it for me. I haven't really read Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Really?
Uh,
I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then I called my buddy who told me to read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I was like, what do I do now? What do I do now? Like, go download Bigger Pockets. And so I
yeah.
went to their website and I ordered the book on rental property investing. And like you said, that's what did it for me. I actually proposed to my wife playing the same song that he did in his little sort
Oh,
of
nice.
story he told in the book. I don't think she knows that. I don't think she's ever read the book, but
Now she
that's where
knows.
I got the idea. Yeah.
Yeah, the other one's the Bird book by David Green, Crushing in Apartments, Commercial Real Estate, Brian Murray. And
I loved Crushing It. I never read the
yeah,
Bird book because I'd already bird like 20 houses when it came out.
right.
But I order them and I give them away all the time. Like when people come by and like one device or whatever, I'm like, dude, this is what I do. Somebody wrote a book about it. Here, just read it.
Yeah.
Um,
Bird book's
but
great, man. Yeah.
but the what was the other one you mentioned? The
Crushing it.
Crushing It. I really
Yeah.
liked Crushing It. That was a
He's
good one.
great. That's the first time I heard it. I was like, where do these people get all this money from? And he
Yeah.
talked about, doing cash out refis and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, I get it. And then, yeah, the best ever book on syndication is another one, man. That's the one that's kind of got me going. And all right, I got to get in these bigger deals.
Yeah, that was the second big pivot in my life too. You know, Rich Dad in late 2017, early 2018 was Rich Dad Poor Dad and Brandon Turner's book on rental property investing, and then late 2019 was when I read Joe Fairless's book on best ever apartment syndication. It's when I started this show and kind of started going to conferences, and that's when it kind of took off. But yeah, man, that's for sure. That's a great stack right there that you got.
Yeah.
What's your favorite quote?
Assumption is the mother of all screw ups.
Nice. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, it's a little bit more rated R than that, but that's for the show. I was just gonna quote it like that.
I am going to write that down and I'm going to tell it to my guys like 8 times a day.
Yeah, that's the one I use
But,
on my employees a lot, man. Like,
but
hey, look, did you check? Did you check? I ask them all the time. No. Well, how did you know then?
it's assumptions is the root of all F ups, I'm assuming.
Is the mother of all F ups,
It's,
yes.
yeah, I love it. What's your favorite thing to do outside of work?
I do triathlons. I like to run. I do jiu-jitsu, travel, all those things.
Nice, nice. When was your last triathlon?
The last one was in May or April. Um, the next one though is coming up in October, doing the half Ironman in October and then the full in November.
Okay. And have you done a half yet?
Yes, I've done a half. The
Okay.
first triathlon I ever did, for whatever reason, I decided to start with a half because I thought it would be not that bad,
Same,
and it was
same,
horrible.
same.
and, and I was definitely broken by the end. So I was never gonna do another one, and then slowly got back into it.
So my first one wasn't bad. It was my second one that killed me. My second half. I never got to the full because I started buying real estate and having kids, and now I
Right.
if I were to go on a 6 hour bike ride on a Saturday, I'd be divorced by the time I got home. But this was before the kids and everything. When I was doing I did a marathon earlier this year, but like triathlon's a different level. So the first one I did, me and my brother went to New Orleans and waited in the rain for like 3 hours, like with our wetsuits on before they canceled it. And so
Oh,
then like on the way back, on the drive back to Baton Rouge, I booked Austin. They had one in Austin, like 2 weeks from there. So I went and did the one in Austin and it was good. I really enjoyed it. And then the next one I did was maybe 9 months later, but I didn't train anymore. Like I was training for the one in Austin and it was Austin. So it was relatively flat. And then I got cocky and I was like, I don't need to really train anymore. And the next one I did was in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, which is like super, super high altitude in the mountains.
yeah.
And so like I remember at one point I was on my bike going like 4 miles an hour. I'm like, I didn't even know bicycles could go this slow without falling over. Like, what's keeping it upright? Like going up the hill. And I remember on the run, I was like, I was so delusional by the time I got to the run. I didn't know if I was going uphill or downhill anymore. And I finished like next to last. I think like the cutoff, like what's the cutoff on those things? Like 8 hours and 30 minutes. I finished in like 8 hours and
Something like
15 or
it. Yeah.
something. I was unprepared and just did not even respect the altitude and the incline the way I should have.
Those
But
are tough. I just did one of the mountain bike ones. It was in June when I did this, and I did back to back Olympic distance ones. And man, I took my crappy mountain bike thinking it was just going to be like some fun little trails and on some hill in Waco, Texas. And it was so hard, man. Like there was
so
roots everywhere.
are
It,
you
like
doing the
every
one
time
in
you hit
Waco?
it, I did. That was the mountain bike one I did.
Are you gonna do the half in Waco?
No, I'm doing the half in
Oh.
Memphis.
Okay, because they moved the one I did in Austin was the last year they did it in Austin. The next year, now it's in Waco every year. That's why I was thinking maybe you're doing the same race I did.
No, yeah, I tell you what, Waco's a nice little town, man. I was impressed when I was there. I didn't know it
Yeah,
was that. I just know about David Koresh
right,
and
right.
nothing else
That's all
there,
you
you
ever
know.
hear. Well, how can our listeners get in touch with you? Because you're about to start raising money and buying big apartment buildings. So you're going to need a bunch of investors. And so they're all going to need to find you, follow you, get in touch with you. What's the best way for them to do that?
I definitely need to do a better job of this with the Facebook and social media and all that. But you can find me on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. My email is veteranpropertyinvestor1@gmail.com. Shoot me an email, man. I love to talk. I love real estate. So, I
Awesome.
have some experience and I'm getting better and better and better at it. So let's talk.
Yeah, man. Sounds great. Awesome. David, well, I really appreciate you joining the show. I look forward to, I'm assuming, seeing you at my meetup next week.
Definitely.
And let's just look forward to keeping up with each other on our journey.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Sterling.
You got it.
This episode was brought to you by Crestworth Capital. If you're a busy professional and ready to make passive income from real estate investing, then go to crestworthcapital.com where you'll be able to download a free copy of our ebook to help you get started today. Until next week, happy investing.